And now, fellow space travelers, it's time for another set of biblical adventures with your pal, me, BionicDance. Let's do this. We just read 2 Kings 1 through 4, where Elisha had just brought a stillborn child back to life, followed by a big ol' family dinner. And now, on to 2 Kings 5. Now, for some reason, the king of Syria decides to elect a leper as the head of his military. You'd think he'd have enough trouble with the enemy trying to take off his limbs. So this leper army dude goes and raids Israel and brings back a little servant girl for his wife. So this little Israeli girl, she says to her slave mistress, ma'am, I know this, prophet guy all the way in Samaria, and he can, totally cure your husband of his leprosy and stuff. So army dude asks the king of Syria for a leave of absence to go get cured, and the king's like, yeah, go, off with you. So army dude takes a shit ton of treasure to pay the prophet and a letter from the king of Syria and goes off to Israel. Now I don't see why the king of Israel would accept a permission slip from the king of Syria for his military commander. I mean, Israel was just raided by Syria. And the king of Israel feels pretty much the same way, because he's all, what, you want favors from me over here? The noive ya. And then he does that tearing his clothes thing that seemed to be so popular back then when you were upset. So the prophet, who is Elijah, if you haven't figured it out yet, hears about the king's little tantrum and says to him, whoa, your majesty, take it down a notch, and have the leprous general dude make an appointment with my secretary, huh? So general dude goes to Elisha, and Elisha tells him to have 7 baths in the river Jordan, and he'll be just fine. And General Dude gets all cranky because he sort of thought that God himself would come and sort of reverse smite him, and so he storms off in a huff. But then his servants start telling him that if the prophet had sent him on some divine mission mandated by God, he'd have done it, right? So why not have those baths? So he's all, oh fine, and goes and has a week's worth of skinny dippings, and hey, he's cured. His ass has skin on it like a newborn baby. No, really, I'm not even kidding. That's totally what it says. So then army dude goes back to Elisha and says to him that there is no God on earth, just a God in Israel, which makes no sense. So then he offers Elisha a blessing, which seems a smidge arrogant. I mean, who does he think he is? God? And apparently Elisha felt the same way, because he turns him down. So army dude replies that he's not going to make any burnt offerings to any other gods, so instead of his blessing, how about Elisha accept these now 2 completely useless mules? Now it doesn't really say if Elisha accepted or not, but either way he tells army dude to skedaddle. I gotta ask, how does anyone read this absolutely wretched storytelling and say, why yes, I'd love to dedicate my entire life to this book? I get more spiritual satisfaction out of watching Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks or no Jar Jar Binks. Here we go. Later it does say that General Dude, whose name is frankly unpronounceable, didn't give Elisha his gifts. Because Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, comes running after General Dude and basically tells him that while his master doesn't need anything, there are 2 guys coming down the hill who could use a little bit of charity. Now I actually had to look up other translations of this next bit because wow, is the language really ambiguous. Basically what happens is that Gehazi takes the charity from General Dude, but then hides it for himself. Then when he gets back, Elisha's all, where have you been? And Gehazi's like, nowhere. So then Elisha gives him this pointed look and goes, ha! I bet you didn't know that I could astrally project myself, did you? I was watching when you stashed the goods for yourself, bitch. And so as a punishment, Elijah takes General Dude's leprosy and gives it not just to Gehazi, but to any kids Gehazi ever has. And not just his kids, but to the entire Gehazi line from now until the end of time. Seems a bit harsh for a little bit of petty thievery, but what do you expect from the servant of a god who'll chuck you into hell for eternity for just the tiniest little infractions? And that's 2 Kings 5. I'd do more, but my gosh, this is exhausting. And it's almost getting dark out there. Tonight's a clubbing night. So until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance, reading the Bible so you don't have to. Not rating and subscribing has been found to cause obesity, acne, and male pattern baldness in laboratory rats.